Um, well, we have to say welcome to Stephan. I think it's a beautiful exhibition. It's the first time I'm doing a talk in the opening of another artist, and it's a pleasure that you are the first. Following your question, I have not an idea.
I love it.
Because I guess art is not a problem to find answers to questions. Art is to put questions. And then the way to follow that has not a lot of interest in the way to concretize an idea or one answer. I guess the best part of art is that you are making art as you breathe. It's just a fluid that it's part of your life. And obviously, as a man, you have political response and reactions. And with your art, you tried also to take an attitude. But in any case, it's something that is sometimes above yourself in the way that you are following your instinct. And doesn't matter which material, doesn't matter what is the support of your work, doesn't matter if you are a musician or you are a visual artist or whatever. But in any case, I guess art is a path of knowledge in the way to know you a little bit better. And in that path, you can reach others that wants to share that path with you, which are the viewers or the people that could enjoy your work with yourself. But it's as simple as to breathe, but at the same time as complicated as to breathe normally.
To breathe normally. You, Stephan, would like to say something?
Yes. Hello, one?
Yeah.
It's okay? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, first, thank you also for the invitation to this for this show, and I'm happy to be here in Barcelona. It's not the first time, but my first show in Barcelona, and I'm happy to meet Jaume Plensa and to talk with him especially. And yes, concerning this question, yeah, it's. I also think it's art is not working like this, that you in a functional way, that you have question and answer them, or answers and you question. Or a friend of mine, a philosopher, he once wrote a text about my work, and he starts with the sentence, the good thing in art is that it has no need. It's not necessary in a way, but when it's one time it's there, it creates its own need. It cannot vanish anymore. But art is not working in a way that it has a function. It in order to answer questions. And of course, when you look at artwork, I think your perception is involved, and you start yourself of asking yourself something, and that's it's a kind of challenge. And for me, it's maybe a kind of appropriating the world and what I see, and to make it real in order in a way by doing artworks.
Okay. And what is a sculpture? I know it's very general, but
I don't know, but
I'm sorry, I don't want to put it in a bad place.
I think in the Renaissance. Hello, one. Is it okay? Yeah.
Yeah,
in the Renaissance period, there was a fight between sculptors and painters, and this one sculptor, I don't know, it was Michelangelo. He said that this difference between sculpture and painting is the same as between reality and the shadow of reality.
Wow.
So sculpture is always much more real. It's really in the space, and it's in a way it steals the persons around space, because it's there, and it has this advantage. But if it's a bad piece of sculpture, it's very it's worse than than a bad painting. Maybe if you make enormous bad sculpture, it's enormous shit. But anyhow, but I also like to work in small dimensions, especially because then. And I noticed that when you make small works, they can be much or even as monumental in the perception than big works. And that's a virtual thing you discover as when you look at them.
It's a pretty funny question in the way that I've been asking myself that question for many years. I guess all of us is asking many times when you are working, because especially in a time as today that it seems that everything should be fast and speed and with not weight, with the idea of multiplication, things like that, seems the sculpture is something anachronic in some ways, and that we are part of the past, like a huge prehistoria of the art. But one day, I've been in Milwaukee for a project, and I remember I was in front of the lake, and it was a very stormy day, and the waves were very brutal, the wind, the rain, everything was moving, and in the lake it was one of the poles that was fixed on the lake for I don't know, boats or whatever, like in Venice, wooden sticks, they are there. And in the middle of this chaos of the storm, two birds were flying and stopped on top of the pole. And I thought I understood what the sculpture means at that moment, because I guess sculpture is a place in where you can go back always. It's a place in where you can be with yourself. Many times we love an armchair that it's in your home, or to go back to the house of your parents, or the hand of your lover that you can take always, is a place. And I guess a sculpture is not a problem of objects, but is a place. And that's probably the reason that it's so hard to describe when you are working in a sculpture. You can talk about many things, but never to describe their everyday life in many ways. And because you are creating a place in where to be. And I love it, because it's a place in where you can rest also. It seems that rest means stop your life. No, it's not true at all. Rest means to be with yourself again. And when he mentioned the idea of shadows, I'm completely agree. And it's a beautiful image of Peter Pan trying to catch the shadow that he loses, to fix in his feet, because that is the key of the life, but not only sculpture, all over our lives. And a sculpture is very strongly related with life and the essence of life. And I guess that it's the material, the real material that we are using every day to work.
Great. And regarding the figuration, which is very central for you both, of course, in different ways. In your work, Balkenhol, the characters are generally anonymous, and usually men and women who are frequently presented standing and dressed with ordinary clothes. Their postures and appearance are trivial. They are showing the daily life. The titles of the sculptures indicates that, like woman in red dress and man with black hair, lady with silver bag and man in reddish brown suit. In my opinion, for the first sight, they could seem very mysterious, in silence or even mute. But after a while, somehow, the perspective changes. I feel it's almost possible to see their soul, like their presence and their existence of the figure. So they seem like mirrors reflecting all of us, like people, ordinary people, ordinary people, daily women and men. In your case, Plensa, you usually use real people as very young girls to develop these artworks family, as you call them, this group, the different groups of your works. I would dare to say, maybe, we can almost recognize them on the street. Duna, Carlota, Isabel, Sofia, Frida are some of the sculptures' titles, as well as the name of the models. We can see their expression, the same in the single one. They have their eyes closed as they were looking inside of themselves. I feel, seeing your sculptures, I feel that then transmit peace and a fantastic and a controversial at the same time feeling of the weight of the lightness. So saying that, trick question.
No,
What?
It's not an answer. You
No,
said
no, but
everything. It's
now
fine.
comes the
It's great.
tricky question. What motivates you to think about, in your case, that work more with the concept of the daily life, or to select the character in your case? And more than that, what are you looking for in this moment? What the concern of this moment?
Yeah. No.
Plensa, ¿quieres agua? ¿Agua? No.
Do you think I need water?
No. I just wondering.
No, I mean, when I started with my figurative works, I mean, I was used to work in as a student in a kind of minimalistic way, and more than my teacher Ulrich Rückriem in concrete and not illustrative way anymore. And then I started to having interest in the tradition of this figurative art, and made a kind of research about how man sculpted and painted man in the whole history since Egypt time to 20th century, and I thought, why did it stop so suddenly in the 20th century? And art became, in a way, autonomous, and want to put away this way of mirror yourself, in a way, in doing art, in doing portraits or whatever. And I think one reason is maybe because of the artist, the art was, my English is so bad, but misused or from politics or religion, and just always used as a medium for illustrating power and whatever, which has nothing to do with art. So it was a desire of artists to make art more clean and sober, and concentrate just on art things. And what I thought is that it can be both in the same time. I mean, you can consider a Pietà from Michelangelo as a artwork for religion means, but as well can work as a perfect sculpture. But of course, when you walk through the city and you see a statue on a place, it's normally an important man or woman or someone who needs to be represented in public space. And now I'm doing men and women, and also present them in the public space as well as Jaume, and they are not. Nobody knows them, and of course this intrigues some people. Once I put a big sculpture of a male head on a pillow in London in River Thames, and people asked me, yeah, but who is it? And they started to invent nicknames. Yeah, it's Prince Charles or whatever, or a politician, and they cannot. They feel it's necessary for them to find a name, but in a way, it's my sculpture. They are, as you said, it's a mixture between a mirror and a projection screen. So you can find yourself also in looking at them, as well as you can imagine anybody by looking at them. And yeah, for me it's difficult to I don't like to explain my work in a way, but and one friend he said in a speech, Stephan Balkenhol does not want to say something to us, but to show us something. So maybe you better look at my artwork than to listen.
But you're saying a lot.
You force me.
I'm sorry. I'm like this. And you mentioned, let's see if I can pronounce correctly his name. You mentioned you studied during many years under Requiem?
Requiem, yes.
Yeah, teachings. So how does experience contributes to development of your own language?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't do the work I do now if I would be a student of figurative sculpture or teacher in a way, because in this case the question was much more clear. What do you do if you do a representation of men or not, or if you do just take a material and cut it and whatever, and it's in a way this minimal work or concrete sculpture, and so it was my Ulrich Rückriem, he started the other way around. When he was a student or a young artist, he made portraits, and then he changed to this abstract artworks. But for me, it was the other way. But it's not a question of going back or forward or being how do you say looking backwards. I think it's always there. Everything is always there. Just a question how you look at things.
Okay, and Plensa, does the abstraction or the minimalist movement somehow influenced you, not necessarily directly, but maybe as a point of confrontation at Stephan example, somehow?
Well, I guess we are in a beautiful moment to talk about movements or specific names or minimal or figurative or conceptual. In my point of view, has not any more sense. It's my opinion. because everything, the different streams of energy are crossing each other, and it's so many layers that you can embrace all together. Well, many times I've been talking that for me the most strong influence is the Mediterranean culture. I know he's not an artist, but it's an attitude. Many times traveling around the world or making projects in different places around, I realize that people are so similar. And it's funny, the only difference is just little details. And probably my little detail is that I grow in a place with a specific light, with a specific attitudes, with exchange of ideas, with the capacity to travel and to feel at home everywhere that you are. And then probably that idea that I always been defending, that every person is a place in itself, that move and shift from one place to another, that is also public space, a person in movement. And I also consider water also the main public space in the world, because it's always moving. You never know where this water is come from. Today it's touching Barcelona and tomorrow Brazil. I don't know. And that probably pushed me to always try to think about alphabets or portraits, as you mentioned before, of real people, but real people as the concept of, for me, the divinities of today, in the sense that anonymous people is really the ones that is growing and creating cities or creating the world, continents, countries. We are. That concept for me is very important. This we are. But we are means also to protect specifically the qualities of each one. Because like that we can have a conversation. If we agree in everything, it's so boring, okay? And I guess the diversity is the beauty in art.
Each person in the world is special.
Yeah, but many times art has this temptation to create an orthodoxy and to say that is right, that is wrong. And thanks God artists exist to say no, okay? And the beauty is when we can share ideas completely in the opposites, and that, I guess, is when everything becomes exciting. We were talking before about Rukriam, because I know him as well, and he's a lovely man, but the way that he's making a sculpture is not mine, but I learn a lot from him as well. I remember I was fascinated with Miro or with Duchamp, and my work is completely different, but you can learn a lot behind the shapes, because behind the shapes is where everything is. And I guess art has this tremendous capacity to hidden important things somewhere. And this somewhere, I think, is the beauty, probably the shadow that Stephan said before. And this idea of anonymous today has an incredible importance, especially for me in the sense that with internet, with many new technologies, we are living in a place plenty of voices. You know that I love Elias Canetti as a writer, and he was dreaming about this house is plenty of voices, that you know that fill up the space, or William Blake that was announcing the one thought fills immensity. Probably today that idea, thanks to new technologies, this echo, it's amazing. But at the same time, it's also a pollution of the every personal ideas, because you finally don't know if you are talking with your own ideas or you are repeating the echo of something else. Okay, wow, that contradiction makes that every single attitude, movement in your work is a decision, but that is also very exciting to go where, I don't know, but to make every day something unique and extraordinary. That is the life in the studio, should be the life in the studio. And to use one or another person, it's great for me, because I could recognize in a single person myself, because every person is like a mirroring where you can feel reflected yourself, and each one, it's you at the same time, and I love that. That is probably the reason I'm using real people.
Great, thank Thank you. And by the way, you is it working? Yeah. By the way, you mentioned the literature, the text, and the words. So I know this answer, but I would like to ask it. So, is the literature important for you somehow? How it's important in your work, and how it's influenced your work?
Well, I mean, I explained several times that my father was a person who books and he was reading a lot. And obviously I always refused to read the book that he was suggesting to me. Yeah. But I grew up in a place surrounded by text. And finally that text, that was something visual, was also something with a content inside. And I had the good luck to read poetry or things that were very influential for me. I love poetry especially, because with few words they could help you to dream in a very in an amazing way, let's say. And it's my job to create images, and this is a strange dream state. Okay, and but if you follow that, you recognize finally that literature is composed by letters, and letters are also part of different alphabets. And alphabets are representing all of us. Different cultures express their behavior, the way to be in a very precise graphism, which is we call alphabets. And alphabets for me, it's amazing because I guess it's the partition, as musicians do, of our voice, our music, the music of our body. I'm talking now. I'm playing my body now to talk with you. I think we are passing into a partition, which is our text. And I think it's fascinating. And because every single letter, every single graphism in that way represents all of us. And I guess it's a beautiful metaphor about society. One letter alone seems nothing, but together with other could do a war with another work, a text with another text, could create culture. And it's from the smaller to the greater is the idea of the foundational stone, which seems nothing, but around is the temple, around the city, around the country, around the continent, around the world, around the universe. I love that. And I guess many times sculpture, in my case, or art in general, it's this little stone that produces one movement. And I think that it's probably my passion or my love for text, not necessarily about the content, but also visually, because it's always a portrait, or even more, the partition of the music of our society.
For you, Stephan? Maybe I don't know, to inspire the.
Yeah, I think, I mean, there are writers and there are musicians and there are artists and all that try to explore the world and the life, and I love to read and so it's a shame that a day only has 24 hours, because you need to have several lives to explore everything we want to do. But in a way, it's to when I'm sculpting a figure, sometimes I think it could be a person, a fictive person for a roman, or also or for a film can also be. And what I mean, art is trying out possibilities. What the life can be so rich of possibilities, and to explore this and to try out what is possible and what happens if I do this, and then in reaction to other people or to the environment, and it's. But there's also the thing Jaime said in the beginning, that when you do a sculpture, you create a piece of reality which is then standing somewhere, or if it's in a room or in a public space, and you can approach this, and you go away, and then you come back, and you have, but every day or every time it can also be different, your approach to this artwork, but this thing is really there, and that's I think it's an important thing. But at the same time, when you write a novel or write a theater play, it's always there. But it can also happen that you read a book 2 times, and your interpretation or your approach is completely different than the first time. It's interesting that you never go 2 times in the same river. That's a philosopher who said it.
I just come back from Chicago, and I would like to say an example from Chicago, because Stephan has a beautiful piece there, and I have another one as well. He has a beautiful piece, if everybody's going there, in front of the aquarium, and I have a piece nearby, okay? And they are celebrating the 50th anniversary that Picasso installed a piece in front of the City Hall in Chicago right now. It was in 67, I guess, no? It's 50 years, okay. And installing my show, I've been reading articles, or I researched a little bit about that moment, because when I did my sculpture at Millennium Park, the name of the mayor was Richard Daley, and when Picasso did the piece there, the name of the mayor was Richard Daley as well, because it was his father, okay? And well, I felt it was funny, and I read the speech that the mayor did at the opening of that piece, because everybody was against the piece in Chicago. Everybody was against the Picasso sculpture there. It was a very big controversy at that time there. And Picasso was not commissioned. It was a gift to the city, okay? And well, I'm not so passionate about politicians, but I guess he did a great speech, because he said to everybody in front, he said, "Well, guys, you will love that piece even if you don't know yet." And believe me that is the best definition of public space. Because every time that you install a piece in the public space, it's a huge controversy against. We need hospitals, we need benches, we need places for our kids, we have not the schools, how the politicians are spending the money in this piece of... and X time later, when people are slowly embracing the piece, they feel really proud about it. Because many times art, I'm completely convinced that art has not any function, don't serve for nothing. That is the main quality of art. Thanks God is that. But finally, people knows the way to embrace the piece and transform that piece into a picture of the everyday life. A landmark, an icon, whatever. You can say whatever. But many times it's just to feel proud to have beauty in their life. Beauty. I know that you are working in galleries and museums, etc., that I consider a public space as well. A gallery is a public space. I did opera projects, and a theater is a public space. But outdoor public space becomes a wild space that you have to survive by yourself. It's not any context around his piece, around my piece, around any one of the pieces. And the piece takes a little bit time. When you are making a garden, you plant a tree, and a very strange tree is small, but you must to let them grow. And then the tree or the plant is taking the space, you know. And public art is exactly like that. It's funny because whatever you do, boom, critics. And many times the problem with politicians that politicians are not thinking more than 3 or 4 years later. The world ends always in 4 years for them. That means that they have not the passions to wait. That is the reason I felt pretty brave, the speech of this mayor, in the 67 when he said, "You will love that sculpture even if you don't know yet," because it's always the same. And obviously we have to visit a gallery or a museum or the space in the public, in outdoor when we do a project, because I'm sure all of you visiting the apartment or the house that you are pretending to rent or to buy to live, because if it's possible, maybe you have not another possibility, but if it's possible, you want to know what to choose or to select or to understand what could be your life in the future. Many times I'm extremely jealous of my work because I abandon or let pieces in amazing places in the world that they have a crazy view forever. And I said, "Mamma mia, I have to go back to my studio and the piece remains." And she said, "Wow." But probably every piece is just a message in the bottle that you are sending and sending. And well, we have a certain age. That means that we have a certain past, that we have a certain history. And we take everything with a certain sense of humor. Because when I got the commission, I know it will be a period of excitement, a period of fabrication, a period of very hard critics, and a period of peace, you know. But it's so beautiful to work in the public space because every piece is creating community, and for me it's very important. It's a place in where people could sit around or just to walk around. People that was not probably expecting to visit a gallery or museum or art. I love to send them messages in the way that that is a possibility. And I guess it's also a very democratic way to spread out around. It's out of control, let's say, even out of our control. And I have so many beautiful experiences in that way that I think it's always exciting when you have that possibility. A show in a gallery is more intimate, it's more introspective, it's about me and me that we can share with others. But in the outdoor space, in the public space, you are working in a dialogue with the site, but especially with the community. And that is so beautiful. Well, it was a great sculptor that we were little friends, Anthony Caro, that he said it's two main problems in a sculpture: scale, scale, scale. And I guess you mentioned the sense of the project. He was talking about physical elements, I guess. But I'm talking about another kind of scale, which is the scale with the community, the scale with the site, more about energy. My work is always a little bit obsessive about that. And of course, that is the reason that we visit the gallery or the museum or the site in where we can get a commission, obviously. But especially you there. No? I remember in Rio de Janeiro, I installed a piece on the water. And that piece, I remember, it was pretty complex because the municipality don't give me the permissions because they protect the beach, well, the shore. And finally I got it, I invented a technique to hold the piece in that place. It was a temporary exhibition for 6 months. And every artist was choosing a place in Rio, but I chose the water because it was the only place in Rio that don't belongs to anyone. And I liked that concept. Okay, at 7 o'clock in the morning we finished the installation after a very long week fighting with the elements, okay? And it was a photographer passing there, taking photos, and 1 hour later I started to get messages because it was the photograph of the France press for some reasons. He was walking in the beach at 7 o'clock in the morning. And okay, suddenly the piece that I installed in Rio, which was in front of the sugar lawn and facing the Corcovado, was not only in Rio, was everywhere in the world. What is the scale of that piece? Okay, very interesting problem. And second, I remember people walking in the beach said to me, "But Jaume, how is possible that you did the face of that girl with the eyes closed and she's surrounded with this incredible beauty?" Okay, and I said, well, because I'm trying to invite them to look at inside themselves, because how much beauty we are hiding inside ourselves. Okay, it's not to compete with the beauty of Rio, but let's try to imagine how much beauty you are hiding inside yourself. Okay, what is the scale? With you or with the city? Okay, we can continue. Eh? It's problems of different scales. I did a piece in Calgary, right in front of a huge building of Norman Foster. And Foster all the time told me, Jaume, be careful because my building is huge, the beams are amazing, everything is oversized. Okay, I said, don't worry, Norman, my piece is not in the scale of your building, it is in the scale of the people that will walk on the ground. Okay, that was a terrific experience because we finished the project, everything was fantastic, well, in my opinion, great. And the scale of the piece is so well with the people walking that the building behind becomes just a screen. Nobody do that, it's the piece. And also something very important, I found a book that the cover was my sculpture. But it was not my name in, it was the name of Foster. Because they were talking about his building. That was very interesting. I think it was a goal for art. Now, the building is represented by the sculpture because the sculptor catches the soul. Okay? Why? Because people could really feel that they have a kind of poetical shelter in front of this kind of idea. We are like Hans or Davids in this huge wall. Okay. I like that. I mean, the scale, it's more important for me, for me, my work. Could be different, it's my opinion. Strongly related with people. The piece in Chicago is a fountain, apparently, but people could walk on the water, which is great, to feel the humidity. I don't know, or if a piece is there, they could walk inside to penetrate the piece and to look at the life around. Well, those are obsessions that I have, to control the scale, but not as a physical problem, but, well, now I just finished the installation of a piece in Bangkok yesterday. And it's in front of a huge building that Colchas did in Bangkok. Well, the building is, oh, mamma mia, it's the tallest building in Thailand, obviously. But my piece probably is the smallest thing in Thailand now. In front of this, because the scale in proportion of the building is just a little land. But when you approach and you are really interacting with the piece, it's fantastic. You know, because the scale is with the people that will use that, you know. And I think that is the beauty of that concept that you mentioned, scale. Scale is a very wide.
Sculptures, to present sculptures in galleries or in white cubes, because it's exposed to the real life, and as he told us, people don't expect to see this in the public space, and they're not looking for art, and they're confronted with suddenly the artwork, and it may change the view of or the humor or the mood. I once had an opening. I did a sculpture, also temporary, for the Forum Romanum in Rome, and I presented a big torso of of a man body, and at the opening, a woman came to me and told me, the day for me it started so badly, and I don't know what she had. There was a divorce or tax problems or whatever, but her day started bad, and now, as I'm here, she said, "Oh, I feel much better. I feel fine." Looking at this piece of art. I mean, there might be a therapeutic thing with art, but yeah, it's also, I think you have to have a piece of luck when you look at situations in towns. there is already there so many things happening in outside space. There is architecture, there are monuments, or there is public relation, billboard, and traffic and things. It's overcrowded by information, and it's sometimes it's difficult to find any place. And therefore, in London, I choose the River Thames and put the man on the buoy in the river, because it was the only place which was empty. And it's in doing this intervenience or interactions in the town, then it's a kind of marriage which happens between the artwork and the situation, and it changes the place. And the best is if the artwork is connected to the specific space, and the other way around too. That and everybody and the value of both becomes higher. That the artwork is much better with the situation, and the situation is much better with the artwork. And then you really create a new situation by doing this. That's. But it's, I think it's also interesting discussion with, in a way, art is very popular nowadays, but in the same time, politicians and all people, they interfere with expectations or with functional discussions, and they do not, how you say, ertragen. They're not ready to accept just a piece of art. The art has to fulfill kind of certain functions, either event sculpture or political stuff, and that they're not ready to accept that it's just about art. Because art is freedom. Art is, for me, art is the best thing to be free, you know? And that's maybe also a danger for certain people. And this openness you have by an artwork, that you can read it in one way or the other way. It's up to you to do this. I proposed, for example, in Berlin there was a competition for a monument for freedom and unity of Germany, and it was considered to be the most important monument of the new Germany and Berlin, in front of the former palace of Berlin. And in the end there were three artists, or in the which remained from I don't know, 500 people who sent their proposal. There was one guy who was more architectural proposal. One was a kind of event sculpture with a kind of banana, which is like a balance, and which moves when you go on one side, on the other side. And the third one was my proposal was just a man kneeling and standing, and downstairs there's a book for this specific proposal, and I made it for another side now. But the jury, they choose this event sculpture, and the responsible politician, he was proud of in saying, "Oh, that's a great event sculpture." and they don't need Unterhaltung. Yeah, it's a kind of an entertainment. It's
a commission that you are invited to do it. It's because they know something about you. Okay, that means that they are asking specifically a piece. Obviously, they give you the completely freedom to decide. But obviously, they said we would love a piece of you because it's you, I suppose. But if you ask me, I have to tell you honestly that the first moment is a big crisis. He said to drink beers. I don't drink beers, my dear, but yes, smoke cigarettes. And in any case, it's a crisis. But I guess it's not different than you fall in love, because it's a crisis also, a very exciting crisis. You need a little time to know better the other person, okay? And you knew a little bit better, but slowly that place, that concept, that idea, your intuitions, and you go slowly to one place that you say, I guess it's that. And then you do the presentation, the proposal, as he said, okay? But obviously it's not any. The other day, Carlos visited me with his family in the studio. It was lovely. He has beautiful kids, beautiful daughters. And one of the daughters asked me, Jaume, how long it takes to do one of those sculptures? And I said, 62 years. Yeah. Okay, and she was completely in shock. She said she probably felt, who is this idiot? No? I read in her eyes. But okay, but tell me, I said, 62 years. I mean, and a commission is like that, no? I mean, for sure, if a commission arrived when I was 30, probably I was doing something else, probably different than today. But that is the beauty of life. I don't know, I'm moving, I'm evolving, I'm changing, okay? But I'm trying to keep the perfume of my dreams behind, okay? And probably I change many times shapes in my work, but behind is always something that continues to be permanent.
So thank you so much for everybody. Dankeschön, Stephan. Muitas gracias, Jaume. So yeah, hope you enjoy it.